Hey guys, welcome back to the front line. It's your girl Shamar, pulling up a chair. I want you guys to come on in the cabin. We got to get to BaalPeor this week, guys. As promised, right? I left y'all on a cliffhanger last week. Only thing y'all know is that at BaalPeor, the men engaged in sexual immorality, right? But what is BaalPeor, right, guys? I want us to get into that because BaalPeor, to me, impacted us significantly. I feel like the effects of it are still evident today in the form of diseases, guys. All right. I feel like specifically some of our sexual diseases are left over from this event, guys. You know, we have already proved over here that the serpent was linked to a parasite, right, guys? And that a parasite is linked to a disease. And that the disease, that the parasite, according to etymology and Strong's Concordance, everything it was leading us to, guys, was to what? Herpes and venereal disease. And I wondered why, right? So let's get into this week's study about the brothels at BaalPeor, right? And exactly what these men were exposing themselves to. Let's get into it, guys. We're going to have a really grown-up conversation because you've heard this word, BaalPeor, right? We all have, right? If you've been studying, right? And I wonder, what is this meaning here? What does this mean? And y'all know I'm going to dig till I can't dig no more. So I got the answers for us today. Let's go on this grown-up conversation, guys, of what the men were doing at these brothels. Let's get into it, guys. All right. Says here, Israel sins by worshiping a foreign deity and having sexual relations with foreign women. Guys, I showed you that the word Barbie and Barbara translates to foreign women. Okay, black Barbies? Says Phineas makes atonement by killing a guilty Israelite. All right. Analysis. This story is significant because it marks the last of the deaths incurred by the faithlessness of the older generation. The final death is seen as an atonement for sin, and from here on, the way is open to make a new census of a new generation and to proceed to the land of promise. The first sin in the story is the participation in the sacrificial worship of Baal of Peor, or Lord of Peor, right? Because we know over here, Baal and Lord is the same word along with husband, right, guys? All right. This adulterous worship is described in terms similar to the earlier worship of the golden calf, and it is met with the same fate, right, y'all? When Moses comes down with the tablets, he finds these people have made a golden calf, but not only that, they're naked. What other reason would they need to be naked for? Come on, guys. We know it had to have some sexual immorality to that story that just was not told to us. Okay? These people are not walking around naked for no reason. They didn't remove their clothes for no reason. All right. Says here the reader must be careful to note that the sin here is explicitly adultery and not relations with foreigners. Bullshit. Because the Creator told us that once you give your daughters over to them, then you will become engaged in idolatry. So it is the issue is actually engaging with the foreign people first. Because that's when you get the gateway to idolatry. Okay? So this article is BS right there when it says that. All right. Moses is, after all, married to a Midianite woman. He is. Let's get down here. Sex was a pretext. I want to go to right here for adultery. We will find out later that the crafty but unseeing Balaam, after he was unable to curse the Israelites with his words, instead counsels the Midianite and Moabite coalition to use the woman's sexuality to induce Israelite men to adultery. Right. So it's the introduction of the foreign woman first. It was Israelites' idolatry rather than curses from foreigners, right? That would at least temporarily remove God's protection. Right. This is when they allowed themselves to be susceptible to these viruses and these diseases that came along with these acts. Because we're going to read later on that 24,000 of them were wiped out by a plague. So am I making this up? As in the calf incident, Moses urges that the guilty Israelites be killed. Actually, that's not the case. Moses did not urge that they be killed. The Creator urged that they be killed. And then Moses don't even do it like the Creator said. But Phineas rose up with his own desire to get rid of this nastiness and stab people. And they're going to give you a discrepancy too in the KJV and tell you that they got stabbed through the belly. No, these people got stabbed through the genitals. And I'm going to show y'all. In Exodus, the killing of the guilty returns God's blessing upon Israel, and Moses attempts unsuccessfully to make atonement for the people. In Exodus, the willingness of the Levites to execute judgment is the main cause of their election as the holy tribe. Levi have no problem wiping people out. Okay, we already saw that Levi did that when his sister got raped. Him and another brother, they wiped out the whole village after these men were circumcised. In the Numbers story, the report of the dead does not come until later. The account is interrupted by the appearance of a single guilty man murdered in the act of intercourse with a Midianite woman. Right, this is when Phineas does what he did, all right? His death at the hand of Phineas turns away God's wrath and makes atonement for the Israelites. Phineas's actions, like that of the Levites earlier, was rewarded with a special covenant of holy service. So Phineas always got a place in the Creator's heart because Phineas got up and said, I don't need nobody to tell me that this is not right. All right? Some of us want to sit around and wait till somebody tell us that it ain't right. And some of us know right off the bat it ain't right. And we're just going to get up and act. That's what Phineas did. I would hope that a lot of us are like Phineas, man. Stand up for what's right, man, for the Creator. You don't need nobody to tell you what's right, man. The importance of this story is seen in the way it's remembered in later tradition. Deuteronomy especially regards it as a watershed event. You have seen for yourself what the Lord did with regard to the Baal of Peor. There goes that Peor again, right? How the Lord your God destroyed from among you everyone who followed BaalPeor, while those of you who held fast are alive today. Didn't I say the other day, guys, that thanks to Phineas, some of us are alive today? All right, he's a great hero of Israel, it's saying right here, and I agree with this article. The death and life issues in the story are fierce because, apostasy brings on God's wrath and a great plague that wipes out thousands. One individual's sin is avenged in a grisly scene where the man and woman are run through with a spear, apparently during intercourse. Yet Phineas's action is seen to make atonement for the rest of the people, and the plagues are stopped. The plagues are stopped. Indeed, all the Israelite deaths cease at this point in the book, and Israel can move on to the new land. Here again, we see clearly the biblical teaching that the wages of sin is death. This is the Roman scripture. Anyway, but it does say down here one that we could agree with from Numbers 25 and 12, right? Not because God desired the death, but because sinful acts have their own dire consequences, right? Remember I told y'all with Eve that sometimes this is just consequences, right? God allowed a single death to make atonement for all, establishing through it a covenant of peace. This is the covenant with Phineas, okay? I don't know about this covenant of peace. I think this article is getting a little away with it, and they seeing it the way they want to see it. So I don't even know why I kept reading that. But anyway, we know that according to the Creator, These people had to get wiped out, man. Whatever they were doing and whatever this PEOR situation was not vibing with the Creator, okay? And Phineas got up and took care of it without having to be told. That's going to be rewarded. I don't know how. I'll have to dig a little more to see if I see any references to that covenant, specifically of Phineas. All right, guys, but let's keep going because I want to get to the BaalPeor, right? All right, last week we read these things that these people did here in Numbers 25 at Shittim, right? I just wanted to open this because I think this is a really funny name, right? We keep seeing words that kind of associate with excrement, right? As it pertains to like sexuality and weddings and, the Lord of Dung, right? So it gives us let's read the Torah real quick right here as to what happened again. Let's refresh ourselves. Yeah, we read it last week, but what else we doing? Come on. You need to know what the hell brought us here. So read it twice, read it 4 or 5 times, 10 times, till you see something different, until you figure out how not to find yourselves up in the situation again, man. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their God. Right? What did I say? They started to go with the daughters first. All right. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bow down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto BaalPeor. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one his men that were joined unto BaalPeor. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation, took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the men of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. See, KJV going to tell you belly, but other translations say the genitals. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel, and those that died in the plague were 24,000. All right, this person's going to tell you right here, it says that Israel yoked themselves to BaalPeor. Yeah. The Lord asked Moses to take all of the chiefs and hang them. This person notices that Moses does not tell the judges to execute the judgment on these people the way the Creator said, which I noticed that through their noticement too. So I thought that was an interesting notice. All right. Slay ye every one, but the Creator said, hang them. Take all of the heads of the people. All right. Let's keep going, though, because I want to get to BaalPeor. We got to get to this name. Because you keep hearing this name, and we know Baal means Lord, right? But what is this Peor? All right, let's get to it. The name BaalPeor summary, meaning Lord of the wide opening. From the verb Baal, to be Lord, and the verb par, to open wide. Do yourselves a favor, guys, and familiarize yourselves with these names down here. They are all associated with this name Baal and linked to sometimes people, places. It just depends, all right? All right, let's get down here to the name BaalPeor in the Bible, right? BaalPeor is a Moabite god, which service specifically includes sexual acts. Numbers 25 reports that Israel joined in the worship of BaalPeor, which results in a mass execution of 24,000 people. That's what we read, didn't we? The name BaalPeor is spelled, right, in Hosea 9 and 10 and Deuteronomy 4:3 as Makep. All right, etymology of the name BaalPeor. The name BaalPeor consists of two parts. Firstly, the word Baal, a common word meaning owner, and what else, guys? We learned this, husband. The verb Baal means to exercise dominion over, to own, control, or be lord over, right? Didn't we learn that that's what their wedding is? I don't know what the Creator envisioned when the Creator allowed the marriages of Jacob and Rachel and how they were doing that. But I know how they're doing it here. And we went over that, right, guys? That we were supposed to be a husbandman, right? The husband was not referred to as a husband. Noah was referred to as a husbandman. Before they invaded us here, we were marrying as husbandmen. That's what we were seeking, not a husband. All right? Because that's linked to the word Lord. The ubiquitous noun means Lord, master, and even husband, and its feminine counterpart means mistress or landlady. Strange that it would mean landlady, something associated with land by being married, right, guys? But I showed y'all why. Let's keep going. The inheritance is the woman's. God is obviously called Lord all over the Bible. The sin of the Baal priest was not that they called upon, that was the sin. We ain't listening to this BS. All right, the second segment is the name of a mountain in Moab called Peor, right? This name comes from the Hebrew verb meaning to open wide. Okay, this is what they're writing. Now we're getting closer to what this Peor is, right? The verb par means to open wide. It used to apply to what? The mouth, but suggests to allude to other body, right here, y'all, bodily cavities, other ones. This verb yields no nouns, which suggests that it describes doing out of a kind of hunger or desire rather than merely the mechanics of opening. In this sense, it means to desire, to yearn, and obviously also to lust. So these ladies in these brothels had a hunger and desire rather than merely the mechanics. They liked doing this stuff, huh? And that they were using things like their mouths and other body cavities. Really. These foreign women, these Moabite women, were doing things with their body cavities and their mouths. And this is the lust that Israel was outside the camp in the booths, in the brothels. This is what was going on in the brothels. They were doing stuff with their mouths and their body cavities. You see? This is what the men of Israel, and this is why it was linked to venereal disease. Right here it says Hosea remarks on the BaalPeor event, and it is clear that the Israelites defiled themselves there with abundant fornication and sexual perversion. All leading translators steer timidly clear from this name, which basically comes down to Lord Hole. They don't want to tell y'all. They don't want to have these grown-up conversations about what was going on at BaalPeor. They don't want to tell you that this is the Lord Hole. They don't want to tell you that these ladies were doing stuff with their mouths and their body cavities, contrary to what the ladies inside the camp were doing. Inside the camp, we weren't painting our eyes like these harlots. Inside the camp, we weren't just going off with men in brothels and sleeping with them in front of the congregation and passing off these diseases. It says 24,000 men were plagued. Let's keep going, guys. Because ladies were in the brothels doing stuff with their mouths and their body cavities. Okay? And the men were making booths outside the camp to be with this. And they still do it. Let's keep going. Because this is what they're getting. Let's keep going. This is what BaalPeor is. Nobody told y'all that, did they? Come on. Oh, yeah. The occurrences of the verb par indicate a junction with strong passion or feelings, usually not very positive. Job describes, and describes, so you got passages up here, and describe the wide opening of the mouth, hence perhaps alluding to other body cavities. Apart from 2 or 3 names, this verb has no derivatives. The fact that there is no noun meaning opening suggests the verb does not so much describe the normal functioning of a body cavity, but rather the motions behind opening up wide. Right here, this is what this is describing it as, and yearning to be filled. Y'all ready for this grown-up conversation? Remember, the other passage says that these people, these women enjoyed this. They showed a desire and an enjoyment that was abnormal to what the women inside the camp were showing. So the men desired them. Let's keep going. They yearned to, it says here, this was a yearning. All right, this ain't my words, y'all. This is the etymology. This is why we got to get into the words, guys. But let's go to this article. Because it says that this was foreign women to Israel, right? So if you ask our community today who we think Israel is, right? We know what we look like. So it's contrary to what we look like. Right, guys? So let's get into these articles, right? Fair use for the purposes of education. All right, what's the name of this article here? Racial ethnic differences in patterns of sexual behavior and STI risk among sexually experienced adolescent girls. That shouldn't even go together. Follow-up studies comparing 2 groups of people, black and white young adults, have indicated that oral and anal sexual behaviors are less frequent among blacks than whites, and that blacks have been found to initiate oral sex at a later age than whites, despite having initiated vaginal sex at an earlier age. So down here, they got some statistics, right? And you'll see that we have the statistics based on your race up here. Right? So starting from the second one, you're going to see this group of people, right? You're going to see this group of people and then this group of people, right? So these people that ever had an STI, for some reason, there's more African American women that have had more STIs, right? Wonder if that's because it's our men that are running off. We will see. Ever given oral sex? Okay, so we are the least likely to have given oral sex. We are the highest likely to have received oral sex for whatever reason. We are also the highest to have ever given or received. Okay. Now, we are the least likely to have ever had anal sex, and white women are the highest, followed by Hispanic women to have given anal sex. All right, let's keep going down. Lifetime number of anal sex partners. So, for it's 176 total, 42 for white, 79 for African American, 55 for Hispanic, right? Because at this point, we're thinking if we don't do it, another girl will, huh? You see it being played out, right? All right, let's go on down here. The highest number of vaginal, oral, and anal sex is amongst white women. These are the folks that are doing the most vaginal, anal, and oral. The least vaginal, anal, and oral are African American. They'll say we're the least desired. I wonder why. Huh, guys? Now we're going to get to some statistics, right, of what the foreign women, what these Barbies are doing in the brothels of BaalPeor and how it's still happening, right? It is still happening, guys. There is an article right here, right? 50 Shades of Grey and how one sex act went mainstream. In 1976, a survey was distributed to American women through magazines like Cosmopolitan. The question it asked were personal, very personal, and the answer compiled were a landmark insight into female sexuality. Okay? All right. In their anonymous responses, women vented and raved about both sexual practices and social attitudes. One of the findings that might shock audiences today, however, was actually one of the least free-loved of all. Buried in the section about receiving oral sex was a question about fellatio. One woman's comment, so that's a woman giving oral sex to a man, is that, so her comment regarding this was, I would consider it with a loaded gun at my head no other way. Reading that line, I wondered where the woman is now. Perhaps she'll be one of the millions off to see this movie. All right. How did attitudes change and so quickly? As recently as the 1970s, this was certainly not something that a gentleman would expect. Today, the act is something more like bread before dinner, noteworthy only if it's absent. But there's more to history besides that change than a simple move towards permissiveness. As it turns out, the ubiquity and standardness of fellatio is perhaps not as widespread as one might believe. So fellatio has been happening for as long as humans have been around, and there are references to it from ancient Peru and classical Rome. Ancient Peru, huh? Don't we say we're indigenous and that this is the Northern Kingdom, North America, and South America is the Southern Kingdom, and then the Southern Kingdom was Jerusalem, and this is where these acts were taking place, huh? Where Solomon was at, huh? With those brothels and the concubines. Cultures and religions, however, have not all taken and still do not take the same attitude towards it. I went to Kama Sutra thinking that would be an obvious starting place, right? But its discussion of fellatio is fairly brief, associating it with dirty and loose women, all right? It says the Kama Sutra spends longer on the erotic quality of fingernails, right? And putting dents in lover's skin versus talking about fellatio. The classic of the dirty book canon of the 1748, Fanny Hill, makes no reference at all to fellatio, which suggests it wasn't something commonly offered in London brothels at the time. No, it was offered in the brothels of the Midianites. Sorry, the Moabites. No one bear false witness. It was the Moabites. In American legal texts of the early 1900s, fellatio was clearly for fellas. You don't say. That's why it's called fellatio. Anyway, the statutes referring to it originally fall under the vaguely defined ideas of unnatural acts. And we're supposed to be about catching gay men, it says. Hetero oral sex tended to get past references in the pre-World War II sex manuals. All right, so they were talking about it then. In a 2000 study, this individual right here surveyed, and in the surveys described the sexual histories of various age cohorts, showing a big jump in oral sex right about the time when the baby boomers started hooking up. So these are people that came back, that were born after the wars, whose parents were over fighting foreign wars, so that they engage in foreign sexual practices and bring those back. And is that why their children specifically were engaged in these type of practices? I don't know. Might be a good question to ask yourself though, right? The sexual revolution brought fellatio, here we go, into the public consciousness via its most famous practitioner, Linda Lovelace. Despite the countercultural frisson of, sorry, we're up here. of the submersive act going mainstream, there's indication that not everyone was on board with it at this point. Women started to write about fellatio, but as something they merely did, much more rarely as something they enjoyed. The act is barely depicted or mentioned in the mainstream films before the 1990s. All right, Bill Clinton made it famous and said that it wasn't sex, right? And that's why 60% of teenagers today agree with him, it says. All right. It says Newsweek warned that some of the activities described would make readers want to throw up, which does suggest that the readers in the 1990s were still not of the view that the president's sexual practices were standard. All right. So it's saying here that in the 1990s, articles said before they started talking about this Bill Clinton scandal that people might want to throw up. All right. And they were talking about specifically fellatio. But now, do people want to throw up? When you talk about it now, it's everywhere. People to say this stuff in front of their parents. Even today, the everyone's doing it attitude that prevails in sex writing is not entirely accurate. Perhaps the reason we've come to believe that everyone is into oral sex is because it's most common among, this article saying it, Time said it, white people. And it's white sex writers who are saying that it's universal. Yes, 75% of white college women reported in 2001 having done it at least once. A 2001 study called Race, Gender, and Class, right, gave these statistics. Sorry, let me go up here. Other research over the last 20 years out of these ethnic differences among college students in the 90s, whites were more likely than Asians to participate in oral sex. Okay. Says that 84% of white women have engaged in fellatio at least once, while 60% of Hispanic women and 57% of black women. Okay. In addition, though the act is much more common than it once was in mainstream films and TV, not every pop culture depiction has caught up with the idea that it's standard. Begging for a favor. Yep. It says here these cultural differences and paradoxes are ignored in this item is standard mindset. I spoke to several friends while writing this piece. One told me of having the offer of fellatio decline. By normalizing a predominantly white practice right here, and not even one that all white people do, the message is your culture is having sex incorrectly. So this article said that 75% of the college students engaged with this practice are white women. And that the race that is more engaged in this are white people. Whites were more likely than Asians to participate in oral sex. Time said it, guys. Don't get mad at me. Time is saying that there is a foreign woman that is more likely to engage in oral sex. Time is saying that 75% of these women are doing this in college. Where are the athletes getting these scholarships at? Isn't it in college? Is this why they taking all of these men, these athletes? And then you keep hearing women saying, hey, I noticed a trend here. Hey, it seems like something's going on here. Is it because we refuse to do stuff with our mouths and our other body cavities in college that this is happening? When these men are getting these contracts? So the men are still running off with the daughters of Moab because they're willing to do stuff with their mouths and their body cavities. We're still seeing this, guys. And apparently 75% of them are starting out in college. Well, there's an interesting article get ready to come up about a girl in college. Check this out. What you won't do, another woman will. Man, if I ain't heard that in life, I don't know what to tell y'all. I know Women listening have heard this. And I know the men may have said some of this, guys. Not everybody. All right. What you won't do, another woman will. So this woman says, I gave into his fantasies. Now I don't know who my child's father is. All right. What you won't do, another woman will. Those are words I've heard from women in my family long before I was old enough to know what they meant. On the surface, the advice makes sense. Who doesn't want to keep their man happy? It's always a man, right? Who doesn't want to do whatever it takes to make, they got to do whatever it takes, right? To make their relationship work. Those words were always in the back of my mind as I dated. When my high school boyfriend told me to skip school, I didn't. Then I found out that another girl with eyes for my man did just that. I cut school with him for a month straight. In college, with a ratio, this is why 75% of them in college are doing this. Listen to this, guys. In college, where the ratio of women to men, as I've seen, if you had a man, you literally fight to keep him. Okay? That's why 75% of them are doing it in college, because there's a ratio that's imbalanced. I caught the eye of our football team's quarterback, and I was willing to draw blood to hold on. Okay? This is why this girl is going to engage in some of these practices, because she wants to keep this man in college. Where guess what? The woman, the ratio of women to men is obscene. Okay? That's why 75% of these women are engaging in this behavior in college. So you're sending your daughters off, you're sending them to college, and you're thinking that they're going to be getting this great education. And what are they doing? Huh? Instead of reading and learning, quote, right? They're over here with the daughters of Moab, the sons are, possibly, and we trying to keep up with them, right? Painting our eyes in Israel, slapping their hair on our hair so we can look like them, all kind of foolish stuff, okay? To keep up with the daughters of Moab. So we can get our men back? Because if we won't do it, another woman will. This is why you want to be at his feet? Listen, man. The men were struck with a plague, right, guys? In Israel. It says here, a plague is pestilence. It's divine judgment. Right, guys? What did the Torah tell us? What did the Torah tell us, guys? It's going to bruise his heel. Divine judgment, guys, came in on us. Because look at this. Look how many times plagues came in on us. Didn't I tell y'all it started out in Exodus with the Egyptians, that boil? Well, we're going to see it's in Numbers. Numbers 25, the plague on the sons. Right here, guys. The sons. Those sons were 24,000 men died. Right here. 24,000 of them, guys. It was a disease, guys. I took forever trying to highlight that. I'm so sorry, guys. It was a disease that broke out on these men. The plague of the opening. Okay? It's saying it right here. So if they told us that the word PEOR is the Lord of the opening, whenever you see that word PEOR, it's the plague of the opening, guys. To this very day, the men at Israel are off with these foreign women. They're off with their Barbies, spreading their diseases. Because I told y'all that the Y chromosome stores junk viruses. Well, a virus is a serpent. These junk viruses are these STIs. Right here, guys. Disease. You're going to find those junk viruses on the Y chromosome from those 24,000 men that were wiped out. In your mind, you think the bovine parasite and the tapeworm are linked to the meats. I'm going to show y'all something later on that's going to show y'all what these are linked to, guys. Creator says it was a plague that broke out amongst the men. But that's why y'all wanted to build these brothels, and this is why you wanted to worship BaalPeor. Because this was your Lord. And these women in these brothels were doing stuff with their mouths. See that? And their body cavities. To this day, you're still with them. I hope I did a good job, guys, of showing you what this BaalPeor worship was and how we're still engaged in it. Much love, guys, from the front line. May wisdom guide you. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.